Hello, everyone. Welcome to Start Your Dungeons. I'm Adam,
I'm Bryce.
and today we're going to talk about a new game that just released to Kickstarter backers, Break.
In our
From
first separate review, and by separate I mean me and you being in separate places.
Yeah, it's our first, kind of separate kind of thing. So this is from Gray Wizard Press,
hmm
and for the people who backed it on Kickstarter, they got their copy about 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And mine's been kind of sitting there, and I've looked through it. We talked about it in our year-end review that I wanted
Mhm.
to talk about it. So today's the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about what is, Break, what comes in that book. Because, like you said, this was a Kickstarter project that kind of had influence. I always say to me, it has like that Akira Toriyama kind of style of like artwork, and then also just a very anime-esque looking style to it, kind of not like Fabula Ultima, but in a similar kind of like leaning style, maybe.
To me, it's more like having a Super Nintendo game. It's like a Super Nintendo RPG, and but not like Final Fantasy. It is
hmm
specifically things like, I don't know, like maybe Dragon Warrior.
hmm
But it has its own characteristics. There's the very obvious influences of Studio Ghibli kind of things, but
hmm
it's mainly a video game, but a tabletop RPG.
Speaking of video games, I played Diddy Kong Country 3 on my Switch the other day, and I have never felt so horrible at video games than playing that game. I was like, I had fond memories of this. I don't know if I still have fond memories of this
No, I mean
game.
that's like me going back and playing Mario games.
hmm
I used to have skills. I don't
Not
have those
anymore.
anymore.
So is that a when you talk about the book, is it everything all in like one book,
It's
pretty much?
everything in one book. It's got all of your monsters. It's got your items, which the way it does items is simplified. So
hmm
this was something that we've talked about before with games, like maybe they needed where you just have a class of weapons
hmm
that all have one damage type. So, you'll have like there's, these swords, and they'll do 1 heart of damage, or, they do 2 hearts of damage.
hmm
So it's kind of a simplified mechanic for how they do damage, but you've got your magic items, it's everything. It's an all-in-one core
hmm
book, but really you shouldn't have to buy anything else.
Okay. Awesome. And then would you say I mean, it's a hardback. It looks nice. I like the blue on the outer color of the
Oh,
pages. Like, what do you think of like the art and the quality of it?
the quality of the book, I don't think it can be matched.
Oh, wow.
The quality, I'm a big stickler for artwork, and the team that they got, and the artists that they got for the artwork, top notch. And every single panel, that's what I'm going to say,
Mhm.
is like every single panel, I feel like knocked it out of the park with the artwork.
I remember
I love the
flipping.
little touches, like the
Yeah.
colored edges. There's a lot of publishers that are doing this now, not necessarily in the tabletop gaming community, but if
hmm
you go to Barnes and Noble and you look
Yeah.
on the shelf, that's really popular right now. It used to be the frayed edges for books. Blech.
Mm,
They're doing the colored, which
Yeah.
I do appreciate.
Yeah.
Little ribbon bookmark,
Always nice.
which that's always really nice. The paper quality is really nice. Good, sturdy hardback. It's like textbook quality
Okay.
hardback. So as far as quality goes, 10 out of 10. You're
I will
not.
say I flipped through it too. It felt like, and I don't know if it was on purpose they did this, and I think you'll understand as somebody who is older and have played games like this. It felt like a game manual. Like, well,
Yeah.
you used to get instruction booklets with artwork and stuff in there. I
Yeah,
always remember
for
like
you
my
young
dad.
kids.
Yeah, I always remember. I think it was Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior. No, it was Dragon. I think Dragon Warrior 8 or Dragon Quest 8 that my dad had on PS1. And flipping through that booklet and seeing all the little drawings and stuff was so cool
Mhm.
to me. So it feels like it has that, like I think, like you said too, that nostalgia feeling of old school games in it, which is
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, they absolutely nailed the nostalgia portion of it.
Right. We'll talk about now getting into the game. From a player and a game master side, how easy do you feel like it is to get into Break? Because this is a new system, right? It's something they've developed on their own.
Um, no.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's a D20 system.
Okay.
You just need a D20. You don't need anything else.
Hmm.
But it's a D20 system and it uses, like when I first looked through this and when I, wanted to, to pick it up from Kickstarter, I you just kind of like, okay, I mean, it's a D20 system, but maybe it's got some crunch to it because that's
Hmm.
something I said in the year-end review. It looks a little crunchy. There's a lot of stuff in this book.
Right.
It's combat. Roll higher than your enemy.
Hmm.
Skills, roll lower than your skills.
Interesting.
That has been around since forever.
Yeah.
That is like, I mean, that's like an old D&D homebrew thing, like roll
Hmm.
under for your skills. Like, I mean, it's not really innovative.
Okay.
I don't hate it, but what I'll say is that, as far as is it easy to get into, if you can understand D&D 5th edition, this is easier.
And I feel like that's a hallmark for us too. Like, I know we don't talk a lot about 5e, but 5e to me is actually a really I want to call it a middle point system where
Yeah.
it's not simple like a lot of other games. There is a decent bit of not crunch is a bad word there, but it's like, it's not simple, but it's not complex either. It kind
Yeah.
of fits a good middle ground. So I think that's it's interesting to me that it's only a D20. I guess if you want a bunch of your giant glittering dice orbs, that's totally fine.
Yeah. But I feel like this book oversells itself.
Okay.
It it looks like a complicated game. There's a bunch of stuff all over the pages.
Right.
It doesn't need to look like that.
Okay.
I feel like they could trim a lot of it out and it would still be the game that it is.
Right.
Um, so I think,
Interesting.
in one way, I think this is going to scare people off because they're going to look at just flipping to a random page. There's all kinds of stuff all over it, and people are going to be like,
Right.
"Oh my gosh, do I have to read all that?" No, it's D20. Roll high for enemies, low for skills.
Interesting. How do they do like characters and stuff like that? Because I don't really remember flipping through. Is there like normal classes, that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, or?
So they have various kinds of classes. Now, one of the things I like about it is that they give you some archetypes
Hmm.
of different kinds of characters. So, you've got your races, your typical kind of races, but you also have character classes like the champion, that's your
Right.
fighter. They've got a battle princess, which is kind of neat. And I will say, like, one of the cool things about it is it looks like little there's art that looks like it comes from a cartoon, like like anime
Yeah.
or something, but there's no existing anime of it. It's just,
Oh, that's cool.
like you've got your sage here. So, but over on the side, it's like, oh, there's this little cartoon.
Yeah.
There's no cartoon,
Yeah. That's
Um,
cool.
but it has, various archetypes that all kind of feel familiar. They
Hmm.
have a little bit of, their own characteristic to them, but you can look through them and say, oh yeah, well, that's my fighter, that's my wizard, that's my, cleric kind of character.
Right.
So there's nothing that's really that unusual about the characters that you can create.
Right. And you did say too, like from a game master perspective, it is only a roll D20 system. So do you feel like as a game master, it's easy to get into in that regard, or is like monster stat blocks and stuff more difficult?
So I'm pretty sure that I could, like, just from reading through, because I didn't read the entire book. I
Hmm.
read the stuff that was most important. I'm pretty sure I could run this
Okay.
right now.
I mean, that's good. Like, I feel like if a game can be played without having to read the entirety of it, that's a solid system sometimes.
Yeah, I like I said, I feel like the book is a little bloated in the way
Hmm.
that it's presented. I don't feel like it's a bad system. I don't
Right.
feel like it's a bad like I honestly, I don't feel like anything about it is really bad. It's
Right.
just it's a lot for your eyes to
Right.
try to go through. And I think that is a uh I think that kind of misrepresents how simple the game is.
Right. Absolutely. Speaking of rule sets, let's talk about it. So, what are the things you like about it? What are the things you don't like?
I mean, the familiarity alone is,
Right.
is great because if I already know how to run a D20 system, I just grab my D20, throw it in my pocket, and then go to game night.
Right.
And also if I needed to teach new players, I could teach kids how to run this pretty easily. Whereas, other games that we play, I'm going to have to do a little bit more finessing and try to say, okay, well, in this other game, it's called this. And then, in this game, it's called this. I can pretty much like you can look at your character sheet. If I already built some characters for people and just flop them down in front of people, I'm pretty sure we could just be off and playing in a couple of minutes.
Okay. Which is also good. Is there anything you don't like about it, really?
Um, just the fact that I feel like there could have been some innovation there. I think it was
Hmm.
a missed opportunity where they could have provided some things that they didn't. Like
Right.
I think the thing that they do well that you don't get with something like D&D is the damage system.
Hmm.
So instead of hit points, you just have hearts,
Right.
just like you would have in Legend of
In a
Zelda.
video game, yeah.
You've got your little hearts sitting there. And that's how damage is represented in this game. It's
Hmm.
just with little hearts. And that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I could, if someone plays retro video games, I can tell them how the damage works and they're gonna get it in seconds.
Right.
I just feel like if that's really the only difference. And I
Yeah.
feel like they had an opportunity for some innovation because this book screams innovation, it
Right.
screams, hey, we're doing something that looks
Yeah.
different. It doesn't look like what's on your typical store shelf.
Yeah. I feel like with that Kickstarter too, remember looking at it, feeling like it was the way you're talking about it now. I feel like, and this is not saying that they did this on purpose, but it feels like maybe when I looked at that Kickstarter, it was portrayed a little differently,
Mhm.
maybe. And maybe that's just me misreading it and what they were trying to represent.
Me too.
Right. So I think,
I mean,
yeah,
I feel like when I was looking at the Kickstarter, I may have misread it too.
right. So
So
yeah. Um,
again, I'm not saying it's bad. I just say that I feel like it's a D20 system, and I feel like
yeah.
there might have been a missed opportunity for
Yeah.
some new things.
You're reinventing the wheel with new art and things, not necessarily new game
It's
design,
it's
which,
not a game. It's not a new
right,
game.
right. And
It's
we talk about that. We've talked about Kendall Obscura being a great one of those where I was like, that was just a great setting book with a very minuscule rule set,
yeah,
right? And sometimes that happens.
yeah.
Let's talk about because I know the Kickstarter was just for the core rule book. Are there any expansions or anything that they included with that when they did it?
I didn't get any expansions. I've got the character sheet,
Okay.
um, but that was it. Now I know that there's like the community is making some things, and I haven't looked into it since I got mine. Uh,
Right.
so that's on me.
That's fair. to me, it just I'm trying to remember that campaign, and I feel like that campaign was really just for the book more than anything
Mhm.
else. So, let's go into who is this book for? Do you think this is for new or seasoned role players? Because to me, it again fits one of those things where I could go, maybe seasoned players want this for the nostalgia of old video games. Maybe new players like it because it's kind of simple to understand.
I feel like this book is primarily for retro gaming RPG fans.
Okay.
I mean, and this could be like novice tabletop players, seasoned tabletop players, but I feel like the people who are going to actually understand what this book is trying to do are the people who like Super Nintendo, maybe some of those PS1 games.
Right.
Um, it is
It's a
it
weird
is
niche to put yourself in.
it is. I mean, of course, I'm in that niche,
Yeah.
like I love those games. Those are my
Right.
favorite games. Um, but I feel like you kind of have to have a connection to that art style in order to want to pick this book up in the first
Right.
place.
Yeah. It's kind of like with Fabio Ultimate. We always talk about some people go, ew, I don't like the anime cover. And it's like, but there's so much more to this game besides what's on the front cover.
Yeah, that, and without turning this into another, Fabula Ultima love fest, you know, that's a game that had some innovation.
Right.
It really stressed some things that even if we've seen something kind of like it before, we didn't see it in that package and we didn't
Right.
see it together like that. This is it needed just a little
Right.
something.
Exactly. So talking about the game itself, talking about would you try it, are you interested in playing it at all as a player or a DM?
Um, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like I like the book. I I like the system. I'm probably gonna skip it.
That's fair. I
I
was interested to play it, but I didn't really see it as something I really wanted to DM yet.
Yeah.
So having heard you talk about it more, I think it's interesting, not to say this is one of our, I don't want to say a negative or like, but just like this one wasn't a
It's
hit for us,
yeah,
like we
it's
thought it
it's
would be.
this is not a negative review.
Right.
I want everybody to understand. I don't dislike this book.
Yeah.
I just I already have a game like this that I really enjoy and that
Right.
I want to run. And I thought maybe this did something a little bit different, and it doesn't.
Right.
It's a
And I,
perfectly acceptable game, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people who love it.
right. And then, so final question then, are you actually happy you picked this up off Kickstarter?
I kind of wish I'd saved my money.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
It feels like it's not innovative enough. And I know sometimes, we talk about games on here. Like a great example I always tell people of a system that is similar, but it innovates in the way that it presents itself in some ways just based on how its world is shaped, is looking at Morkborg and then looking at games like Cyborg and Pirate Borg.
yeah,
Same system. I mean, same system,
yeah,
but they innovated in new ways with classes and
hmm
areas and how they did. And that just was enough. And that to me, this game feels like it doesn't it maybe relied too heavy on a cool idea, but not enough of how to make that cool idea an actual game.
yeah,
Whereas maybe in the long run, to me, and I hate to do this because I know a lot of people do this already, it kind of sounds like it would have been a great source book.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
system setting kind of design, but oh well, fair enough.
But if any of you out there have different opinions, like I mean, definitely tell us what you think. If any of you were Kickstarter backers for this
Yeah,
and you enjoy it and you play it and or you just want to ask questions, I can definitely help out. But leave a comment and discuss.
right. I feel like games like this are interesting for me because we had another review like this when we did the Arkham Horror starter box that I bought and ran, and I just didn't get the experience out of that I wanted. We had people comment saying like, "Oh, I love that game because it felt like a board game," you know.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
intrigued
and
to see what people say about this one and what makes them go, "I'm playing this over something else."
there is no such thing as an all like a one size fits all game.
Right,
And some people are going to love it, and some people they're just not going to connect with it. I don't hate it. Other people are going to connect with this more than I do.
right.
And if you do, that's amazing and love what you love.
Exactly. Well, like Adam said, please shout out in the comments if you have played it, if you're interested in knowing anything more about it, or if there's something you thought that if you have read it, what would you have added to this to help make it maybe have a little bit of a different experience? But until next time, y'all take care.
Right?